did a whole variety of things that should have killed us as well.
Been there.
We picked a few.
Hello, we are here at Sun Sounds of Arizona in sunny Flagstaff, Arizona, and welcome to episode 7, of Untamed Shrews Women Talk Theater. I'm Hannah.
I'm Dawn.
And I'm Becki, and welcome to today's episode. Can you believe this is already our 7th episode?
7 months.
Woo! Thank you all so much, everyone, for joining us for the past 7 months. Dawn, who are we chatting with today?
Today, we are joined by renowned Shakespeare director and wonderful friend, Jim Warren. We're glad to have Jim back. He directed our summer shows this summer, Midsummer Night's Dream and Hamlet, after directing our winter shows last year of Twelfth Night and No Spring Chicken. And we're so excited to have him here.
Woo!
Yay.
Woo!
Yay!
My middle name is not technical difficulty.
Yes, everyone out there, we have been struggling to get this podcast started for about 45 minutes. So you're hearing the final product. Yay, Jim! Can you quickly tell us about yourself, your background, anything you want the humans out in the internet world to know?
Wow. How about the first thing is that I am a Navy brat. So it is possible for the kid of a military person to grow up really, really liberal and start a theater company. 33 years ago, I started a Shakespeare company in Virginia. We were called Shenandoah Shakespeare Express for a good number of years, but that was really hard on people with lisps. So we changed our name to the American Shakespeare Center in 2005. So we started in 1988, and we toured the country and other countries for a good number of years, and then built our own theater that opened in 2001. In September of 2001, I would not recommend that date for starting a new business venture, but we were the product of our time. And that theater is the Friars Playhouse, which is the world's only recreation of Shakespeare's indoor theater.
Ooh.
And we eventually started a partnership with the local college that is now Mary Baldwin University. And that is where Dawn got her MFA and where I met Dawn.
Yay!
Yeah, that's right. And the Blackfriars is absolutely gorgeous. It's my favorite place to watch Shakespeare not outdoors.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
And Jim, what are you up to currently? How do you spend your days besides so gracefully directing many of our plays?
Well, I started the American Shakespeare Center in 1988, and I guess it's 3 years ago, I left my own company to do other things.
Mm-hmm.
And in these last 3 years, I have been so lucky and fortunate to be able to be a consultant, be a teacher, be a freelance director, and going all over the country. And I did not know when I left my company what I was going to do. I just knew that it was time for me to do other stuff in other places. And I kind of thought that I would end up doing theater that uses all the bells and whistles of, modern technology, stuff that we did not do with the American Shakespeare Center. But as it turns out, I keep getting asked to go places and direct using Shakespeare staging conditions, and that's been a delight to find out. Oh yes, I guess that's what I should be doing.
Yeah.
So
once you've seen
so
it done that way, it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's something that is it's so accessible and creates this connection between the audience and the actors that it's just really hard to not want to do that. And so I'm delighted that that's what I've been able to do since leaving my company.
So I'm
also working on a. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I have a funny story of one of my favorite moments of OP theater. So for our audience who doesn't know, this is something that Flag Shakes practices. We try to, our original staging practices. And one of the tenets is to keep the lights on the whole play. And another tenet is to have audience members on stage. And it was a Romeo and Juliet directed by Jim Warren, where Romeo hid on stage next to the last chair on stage during the performances. And I probably watched that performance, I don't know, a dozen times. We were big nerds in grad school. Wow. And yeah, right. And my favorite night of that performance, Greg Phelps, who was playing Romeo, kneeled down next to the very last chair, and there was this tiny little girl sitting there. Aww. And Juliet starts talking, and Romeo looks right at this little girl and says, "Shall I hear more, or shall I speak at this?" And she thought about it, and she sat up so straight, and then she looked at him and she said, "You should probably say something." And it was the most delightful moment of theater I've ever experienced. So thank you for producing that moment of theater, Jim, and for introducing me to original staging practices and for continuing to spread them. But yeah, what else are you were about to say you're working on something else. What else are you working on?
Well, I got approached by a former actor who was with me, gosh, a long, long time ago in the, I think, mid-90s. And he lives in Stratford, Connecticut. And he was there a couple of Januaries ago when arsonists burned down the remains of the American Shakespeare Theater Festival. They had so many different names, but there was a big theater that was in Stratford, Connecticut that hadn't been that had been derelict, unused since the late '80s, and it had just been sitting there. And lots of people were talking about doing different things over the years to re-outfit the theater, but it burned down. It burned to the ground, and he gave me a call and said, "Hey, what do you think about joining me to build something different on this place, on this land?" And we got to talking, and I said, "If you're going to build an outdoor theater, I think the best thing to do is to build a globe." And so we hatched this plan that includes this whole theater campus on that space to build a recreation of Shakespeare's second Globe Theater. Shakespeare's theater burned down as well, and they rebuilt it in 1614, and nobody else on the planet has tried to recreate that 1614 globe. So we're working on a project that not only would work with Peter McCurdy, who built the Globe in London, the recreation of the Globe in London, to not only build this 1614 Globe, but also to build a modern performing arts center that has two different spaces in it, so that we could do Shakespeare staging conditions at the Globe, but then also in the indoor space have every modern technology thing that you could possibly want, and between the two buildings do any play under any style that we want. So nice. We are working behind the scenes on that to try to make that a reality, which would be an awesome thing for the theater world to get. Yeah.
And actually, we have been working behind the scenes on a theater of our own called the Mountain Rose. It isn't happening right now, but we have been in the works for it for a few years, and it would be similar, like a campus that would include studios and aerial studios and dance studios and spaces for the actors to live in and rehearse in, and of course an actual open air theater and all that good stuff. But this reminds me, funnily enough, you guys have to check it out on Instagram. They followed our Flag Shakes Instagram, so I kind of like snooped on them a little bit. They're called the Container Globe.
Oh yeah.
There's a bunch of weird
Angus.
Oh, do you know him?
I know Angus Vale. He used to be one of the road
That's so
managers
cool.
for the rock band Kiss.
What? That's so cool. Oh my gosh, Jim, you know him. Yes, so it's so interesting. For anyone out there who doesn't know what it is, definitely look it up. It's called the Container Globe. But he's trying to make a globe out of like shipping containers. Anyway, it's very interesting.
Sounds
but there's
sustainable.
yeah, it's really cool. There's actually a lot of people out there who are doing interesting, weird stuff like that. So yeah. Cool.
Also, shameless plug, if there are any donors out there who want to donate thousands of dollars for this Mountain Rose.
To our Mountain
Maybe
Rose.
hundreds of
Maybe
thousands.
hundreds, maybe $1 million.
We take whatever.
Millions, yes.
Millions,
They
yes.
should do millions.
So, Jim, what do you think building a theater a second time around, like if you had any advice to give to those of us who are thinking about it on our own, or maybe other new companies who are like, man, we really need our new space, because I think that's one of the first things you run into when you start a theater company. We have had the pleasure of using so many wonderful spaces in Flagstaff, but it never quite works until you have your own access to rehearsal space, you have your own access to set up the stage, to have everything that you need in space. So what would you say, now you're on your second go around, what's your do's and don'ts, or your best advice, or your biggest mistakes?
Well, what's so strange about my first company is that we never wanted a space of our own. that we were designed to be a touring company, and we performed, all over the country without even a home base until years into what we were doing. And that home base was using other people's spaces. So for us, we got lucky in that we were successful enough that people came to us and said, wow, don't you want your own space? Don't you want to partner with us to do your own space? And that's how the Blackfriars got built. Amazing. We were originally approached by a group out of Richmond that was wanting to build a recreation of the globe overlooking the James River. And they asked if we wanted to be the anchor company of that. And I said, sure. And this is when we were based in Harrisonburg, Virginia, which is where James Madison University is, which is where I met Ralph Allen Cohen, who was my business partner in the American Shakespeare Center. And this was like in the mid-'90s, they came to us from Richmond. And at the same time, people from Stanton, Virginia came to us and said, don't you want to move your operations to Stanton and build a theater here in Stanton? Wow. So at one point, we were talking about building a Blackfriars in Stanton and a Globe in Richmond. And when I tell the story, I usually say, thank God for unanswered prayers. The Richmond project fell through, but we took that architect, Tom McLaughlin, and brought him on board to build the Blackfriars.
Okay.
So I stumbled into, with the first company, building my own space. And now I'm talking about building this huge, $100 million campus where not starting from scratch, not starting from grassroots, but starting off with boom, bang, you've got all these darn seats to fill. Yeah. So I have all kinds of advice on what not to do. And I think the biggest thing, and the thing that's different now than it was 800 million years ago when I started the first company, is I think we designed a touring company, and I would have just toured in Virginia if we had gotten gigs in Virginia. I didn't know what would happen. All I knew was when you perform Shakespeare using the staging conditions that this genius playwright wrote for, you unlock a magic in the plays that's just different than when you play with all the cool things we've invented in 400 years. So I just wanted to show people, isn't Shakespeare cool when you perform it like this? Mm-hmm. And because my business partner was a Shakespeare professor, we got connected to the Shakespeare professor mafia. And they just kept wanting to book us further and further away. So it was all about the way we performed, and we would go anywhere to do that. I would not recommend that as a business model. I think we got lucky with that. I think theater has to be local, that it needs to start locally. And And that's something that we're trying to do in Stratford that I didn't have to do when I was just building a touring company. And so trying to be grounded in the community that you're in and offer that community something that they don't get from other places in that community. And from everything I've experienced about Flag Shakes, y'all are doing that. And to me, that's the cornerstone building block that I think everybody needs to have when they start a theater.
Aww.
Wow.
Becky's
that
getting
really
emotional.
hit. Yeah. Well, just know, like, connecting to your community, and that's just so important. Like, I mean, thinking of it on the audience perspective, you never know who is going to come in and sit down and watch your show and how it's going to affect them and the way that they go through life after seeing it.
Yeah.
Wow. Jim, that hit.
Jim, I'm super curious. Where were you guys at your year 7? So we're in our year 7. So I just want to hear.
Oh, lucky number 7. Sorry, and it's our 7th episode.
Woo, you're right. Oh my gosh, look at us go. What were you?
Well, again,
yeah. What was your year 7
because
like?
we were a touring company, it was kind of a different animal. We had been through the early phases of, hey, actors, we can't pay you until we get done with this tour, and then we can probably pay you gas money. And the big leap came in 1992, where for part of the calendar year of 92, I committed to, hey, actors, I can't pay you a lot, but I can pay you this much plus housing when we are in our hometown of Harrisonburg, and all of your lodging when we're out on the road is going to be covered. When a venue will be required to feed us and or give us money to feed you. Can you work for us full time so that we can be available full time? And that was the big leap. Could I contract actors to be full-time folks, and because we were therefore available full-time, could I make us enough money by booking us? We didn't do ticket splits. We got contracted by universities and performing arts centers, and in those early days, some high schools as well, where they would pay us a flat fee. And so as the person running the business, I had to get us enough gigs so that we could continue to pay people full time. Right. And so that happened starting in 92. We had 2 sections of that year. Half of it was full time while the first half was not. And then in 93, I took the next big leap, which is we're going to hire you actors for 12 months. And we're going to pay you so that you don't have to work another job. You're not going to make a lot of money, but you can make enough to live on, unless you are somebody who, had too many student loans or whatever. We had all kinds of people come and work for us full time. And some of them managed to save money, even though it wasn't a lot.
When you're not paying rent, that really helps.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it at the time, but that was a game changer. To rent a house where we could house everybody, and it eventually, became 2 houses or became, rooms in a house plus apartments. As soon as you can do that and not have to do that paying rent thing, that opened us up to hiring people from all over to come in. It wasn't just local actors in Harrisonburg, Virginia. It was, I made the leap to go to the audition conferences, SETC and NETC, where hundreds of actors would audition for dozens of companies. And so we were able to grow at a different rate because of those things, because we didn't have a home. So by year 7, that was in the mid 90s. It was the mid 90s when we finally hit that mark of 47 U.S. states and 5 other countries. Wow. And we went to we went to the Edinburgh Festival in Scotland, and we...
Okay, we lost Jim for a moment, but he is back. Jim, you had been talking about how you were in 47 states at year 7, and you were in Edinburgh. That's where you left off.
Yeah, we should have gone under because we miscalculated how much darn money it took to go to Edinburgh. But like so many other times along the way, I figured out a business way to dig ourselves out of the different holes that we created. The easiest time for us was during the school year when we could be booked in by colleges and performing arts centers. But during the summer, we did a whole variety of things that should have killed us as well.
There.
We picked a few cities, and so we would pick a city and rent a theater, and in some cases hire a publicist and try and make the summer a time where we traveled to big cities. So we did Washington, D.C. and Boston and Chicago and Philadelphia. And we got great reviews that helped continue our trajectory. But we also, other than D.C., we lost money in most of those cases. And again, not enough to kill us, but enough to make it harder. And somehow we got out of it. And we started to arrange a home space, first in Harrisonburg and then in Stanton, places that we could play during the summer that would help us with audiences in the Shenandoah Valley. So we were partnered with the Folger in Washington, D.C., and we were actually the first outside group that they hired after Michael Kahn took the Shakespeare Theater out of the Folger and built their own space at the Landsberg with the Shakespeare Theater. So so the Folger had a built-in audience, and that's those summers is when we were doing ticket splits and paying rent on venues and things like that, which we figured out a way eventually to make enough money, but it was barely. So the whole idea of touring was tricky, but also sustainable for us.
Right.
And again, that thing when you can pay actors full time, then you can make money full time.
Right.
And that's something that I would wish on everybody, every theater company, that is really, really hard is how can you handle housing? How can you figure out a way to pay people enough to live on? And in this day and age, coming out of COVID, my hope is that more theaters are trying to figure that out for them, so that actors don't feel like they are busting their butts and not making enough to survive. And in most cases, it's about day jobs, and it's about can you make enough doing theater and your day job to feel like you can sustain yourself financially and be an artist. And that's tricky stuff.
Housing is really detrimental. At least when I was not here in Flagstaff full time, I was only able to work with theaters that could offer me free housing because I literally didn't have a home. I was literally going from show to show, theater to theater throughout the year, and I had to amalgamate my home, throughout the year just by wherever I was working. And if I happened to have a week or two between, I would go on vacation, or visit a friend or something, because I literally needed that free housing to make it through. And I think that's one reason, we can get higher caliber actors here in Flagstaff is because we can offer housing. And that's a game changer.
Our housing hosts. Because,
yes.
Shout out to them.
Oh my gosh. Because here housing is so incredibly expensive.
We're landlocked here.
Yeah. And so it's very different than a lot of other cities. And it's always something I'm racking my brain about because Jim's absolutely right. The other the other repertory theater that I worked at as an intern and sort of got to know the inner workings of, they also had housing. They had a huge,
that they owned.
Yes, that they owned. They had a huge building. It had 2 sides to it, 5 bedrooms and then shared areas.
Crazy.
And that kind of thing in Flagstaff, Arizona is millions and millions of
Impossible.
dollars.
Yeah,
So it's very hard. So we really struggle with it here, but it's something that's always on our minds. And yeah, thank God we have people who are willing to put up a bedroom, put up a house, a condo, whatever, to house our actors, because otherwise, we really wouldn't be able, especially to bring people to such an expensive city as actors and ask them to work here.
When you're only going to be here 6 weeks, it's just
Yeah.
impossible. You can't get a 6-week lease and also furniture. It's just too much. It's just impossible.
I think a 1-bedroom apartment here right now is $2,100. So
It's comparable to New York City.
Yeah, it's really crazy.
insane.
Yeah. My cousin just moved to LA. He's doing sound design at a college in LA, and my aunt said she rented him an apartment there for the same amount that he rented his apartment here.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So it's really getting crazy, but yeah.
It's all those students. They're stealing all of our cheap housing.
I think it's multifaceted.
Oh,
and
for sure.
confusing.
Everyone's buying our houses.
Yeah, but that's such a good point. And paying actors has always been, I think that it's the place where companies either get it right or get it wrong. That has to be like, even if you're not able to do it on the level that you want to yet, which is certainly where Flag Shakes is still, and certainly probably where it sounds like you guys were in those early years of Shenandoah Shakespeare. Even if you can't, even if you can't be there, if you lose sight of it as the goal, that's the problem.
Yeah.
If you start putting that money somewhere else before the actors,
Yeah.
that's the huge problem.
The actors,
So-
I mean,
Yeah,
we
and
let
I hope
text.
I hope that we're in the middle of a change where people are thinking about that more, so that as companies are able to grow, they are prioritizing those kinds of living situations that then also lead to I can live here, I can stay here, because that's next level. The first level is you can hire people who are contract folks who come in and have their housing covered and make a decent amount of money, and then they go away, and then they come back. But then the next step is, how do we continue to build the possibility where people can live here full time and work for the theater full time?
Yeah.
That everybody has that goal, I think, but sometimes the priorities get a little messed up, and companies start spending money on other things other than trying to create, sustainable living.
Yeah. And that's also that's one of the
people,
other beauties
people.
of original staging practices, that it allows that money to go to the actors instead of pyrotechnics or anything else you could be spending money on. Yeah. Well, so speaking of spectacle, we only have a couple minutes left, Jim, or we only have 1 minute left,
1
Jim.
minute.
Oh my goodness. So could you quickly, just if you wanted to, I know you're a sports lover. What is, in 2 sentences or less, your favorite sort of, I guess, connection between sports and theater that you see?
Everybody, well, not everybody. A lot of folks often think of Shakespeare as something highfalutin and high culture. And from the beginning of me starting a company, I wanted Shakespeare to be immediate and accessible. And the 2 things that always struck me as ways to convey that are sports and rock and roll.
Yes.
And so I also think that in Shakespeare's day, theater was more like a sporting event than a high culture sit in the dark kind of thing that it often is today. So I'm always looking for ways to make Shakespeare connect to actors and audiences in a visceral way, in a heartfelt way, and sometimes sports is a way to convey that. If you don't like sports, then there are other ways to convey that.
Awesome.
Yeah, the three of us are like, sports.
What is sport?
Rock and roll I can get behind.
Rock and roll,
Sports.
yeah.
I know
There we
nothing.
go. There we go.
For anyone who doesn't know Jim, when he walks in a room, he's either wearing a rock and roll t-shirt, so some tour t-shirt, or a jersey, or
Baseball
something
cap.
like so he's our sports guy. Well, we are fully out of time. Every time this happens, we are still surprised. But is there anything you want to leave our audience with about Shakespeare, directing, founding a company, sports, anything like that?
I want to leave them with get your butts to Flagstaff.
Woo!
The Flagstaff is a incredible community, and the work that Flag Shakes is doing, I think, is not only awesome, but is part of what's needed in our arts world and in our education world. And so I know that this podcast gets heard by locals, but also by lots of folks who don't live in Flagstaff. And so I say go to Flagstaff. And it's a great community, and it's a beautiful place. And the work is wonderful, done by wonderful people, including you three.
No.
And including you.
Yeah.
We're
Jim,
so
you've already
grateful.
directed 4 of our plays. That's so many.
In like 9 months.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I feel like it's us. It's
Yes.
us. When I talk about Flag Shakes, it's us.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
One of us.
One of us. Well, Jim, thank you so much for being here today. We're so happy that you have joined us for 4 shows now, and hopefully many more to come. And you're just such an inspiration about, grassroots from the ground up. And, we're just proud to work with you. So, yay, thanks for being
and
here.
Thanks for everyone to listening.
Absolutely, likewise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for everyone who's listening to this month's episode of Untamed Shrews. I'm Dawn.
I'm Becki.
And I'm Hannah. Join us next month for an episode with our new equality and casting assistant, Raquel McKenzie. She is an actor, director, producer, poet, and an all-around lovely human that we cannot wait for you guys to meet.
Follow the Flagstaff Shakespeare Festival on Instagram at Flag Shakes and on Facebook at facebook.com/Flagstaff Shakespeare Festival. All episodes of Untamed Shrews can be found on sunsounds.org, the Flagstaff Shakespeare Festival YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher.
This episode of Untamed Shrews, starring Dawn Tucker, Becki Zaritsky, Hannah Fonts, and Jim Warren. Show art by Calliope Luedeker. Podcast theme song by Cadence Lamb. Podcast edited by Hannah Fonts. And a special thanks to Gina Byars.
Yeah! Bye, everyone!
Bye.
Bye, Jim! Bye, Jim!
Bye.